And today, on Easter Friday, we're going to be talking about intimacy and how to get it better. So, first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about vulnerability. Most of the times, people who in this space of looking for more intimacy are also looking for better ways of connecting with each other. And vulnerability is really important. I'm going to talk about the biggest fears that we have in romantic relationships and how to remove them, and also how to reconnect with your partner. If you feel that intimacy has become a little bit of a problem for you. And what you can do to enhance your intimacy skills right now, I'm going to give you a couple of questions that you can consider while you are getting intimate with your partner once again. So, going straight into it, we're going to talk about intimacy. The word intimacy, I love how in the English language we have all these different ways of understanding it. And this particular reading of the word intimacy, which is into me, you see, is one of my favorite ways of describing intimacy. Because what I think intimacy is for me is when we actually allow someone to see deep inside our soul, to see us for who we really are, without masks, without borders, without limits, without fears. And that is so hard to do. I know from personal experience that being able to be truly, truly, radically honest with a partner, sharing with them everything that you think and feel, is one of the scariest things I've ever experienced in my life. And why is it so hard? I always wondered, why is it so hard for us to reveal our true self to the people that we love most, and who should love and accept us the most, right? They chose us. But that's because we have the most to lose. When we are revealing our true soul to someone, we are actually putting down all our barriers, all our safety nets. There is nothing that in those cases when we really, really reveal everything, we are completely bare. And that is super, super scary. I've struggled all my life to figure out how to let go of all the fears and the worries that I had. And fundamentally, the biggest belief that is stopping us from achieving everything that we want and having the relationship of our dream is this idea of not being good enough. I don't know for whom, but we always want to be good enough for a partner so that they love us and accept us. And the problem with this is we don't really know who we are either. We just a couple of minutes ago, before I started this webinar, someone texted me, one of my clients, one of my single clients texted me and told me, well, somebody that I was talking to lost interest in me, and that reminded me how I used to think that I am not good enough if someone does that. But now I know that I don't need this other person to appreciate me and love me because they mean nothing to me. And well, what I really, really need to work on is being enough for myself. So if we are better than we were yesterday, we are enough for ourselves. And this is something that I work with most of the time with my clients. The idea that not being good enough is the biggest barrier we have to success, whether we are in a relationship or whether we are single and we're looking for the love of our life. This is something that we need to address at any level. So to create intimacy, we really need to talk about this skill that we need to learn that allows us to trust someone deeply, to say, I'm going to show you exactly who I am. I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to basically show you all my skeletons, all the stuff that I'm hiding even from myself. And trust that you're not going to break it, that you're not going to be upset with me, that you're not going to judge me, that you're not going to criticize me. So whatever these things are that we judge ourselves to be the worst part of ourselves, the most devilish, and hellish shadows that we have, are the things that we try to protect, and we try to not allow our partner to see, because we believe that ultimately they will not like us. For me, being vulnerable and being able to reveal my true self has kind of been a life lesson. If you've had a chance to watch my TED talk, the TEDx talk that I did, which is about embracing unconditional love, it was a story of vulnerability, a story. And the challenge for me going up on that stage was actually to be vulnerable, to share things from my heart, because I had spent literally my entire life learning to be strong, learning to put up barriers, learning to protect myself. You know, as a teenager, I didn't actually date. I really, I think I had my first boyfriend at like 19 or 20, something like that, because I really was convinced that if I let someone know how I feel about them, they will break my heart. And, you know, for the last 40, 20 something years, I have worked very hard to bring down these walls, to demolish this fortress that I had created around my heart, because I thought that was weakness. So now I'm working on being vulnerable without being weak, using vulnerability as a way to show to myself, to prove to myself that I am strong. Actually, I realized, I don't know, a few weeks ago that my desire to be strong, always to be strong, is actually my biggest weakness that I've discovered so far. So let's see how it goes. Anyway, so I'm going to keep going on beyond the vulnerability to talk about how to create connection. What is necessary? What are the building blocks of connection so that we can really re-establish that bridge? You know, I always see, look at these people here, the people are sitting on other edges of each on one side of the sofa, but I sometimes feel that people who want to get into a relationship with each other, or people who are in a relationship but they've kind of grown apart, literally live on two sides of a river. And intimacy is the bridge that creates that connection between them. So here are a few things that through research have been proven to actually work in creating this connection. So the most important element that establishes this human give and take, I guess, this energy exchange that we have when we create connection, is actually not when we're showing ourselves at our most wonderful or our strongest. When we connect with other people is when we admit to our mistakes, when we share struggles and heartbreaks and failures, when we show the dark side that normally we want to hide, but that tells the other person, oh, okay, this person is human too. The other person, you know, my partner, let's say, is not afraid to show me this part of them that is not perfect. So that creates trust. That starts to bring together these two sides of the story and bring these two people come together a little bit. I find that one of the key things that we're looking for most in our life, in relationships, is a partner, you know, the partner who truly sees us, who we are, if we allow them, of course. But we really want a true intimacy, is allowing yourself to be truly seen, to be the, you know, like bare soul that your partner can see, with all the dark stuff, with all the bad stuff. The bad stuff is a judgment anyway. And the third part, the third area of creating a connection, is actually not about the words, is not just talking about intimacy and talking about connection doesn't create a connection, but it's who we are and how we show up in our relationship. What are the things that we um, that prove to our partner that they can truly believe what we're telling them. So for those of you who are watching this either live or later, I would like you to maybe consider for a couple of seconds, what are your main three fears in a relationship? Lots of people are afraid of abandonment, we're afraid of judgment, we're afraid of not being good enough. But just think about, if you've never really considered, what are you most scared of? What are the things that you lie to your partner about? And why do you lie to your partner about? Everybody lies. Because we are afraid. A couple of weeks ago, no, actually last week, I had a session with a new client who was telling me that she knows that her husband is cheating on her, but she doesn't know how to tell him that, or she doesn't want to tell him that she knows, because she's convinced that if she confronted him with the whole story, he would say, well, you know, then let's divorce. So she's actually not She wants honesty from her husband. She wants her husband to tell her what he's doing, who is he doing it with, and what exactly is happening in his life. At the same time, she's keeping secrets. She's not telling him that she's checking his phone and that she's looking for evidence to confirm her lack of trust. So what are you afraid of in your relationship? What are some of the things that are stopping you from being truly authentic and intimate with your partner? And then once you thought about that, I'll also like you to try to give some thought to what your partner's fears are. What is your partner worried about when it comes to you? What are some of the issues that you're having? Because most of the time when I do this exercise with my clients or my couple clients in a real session, the things that one partner believes their partner's fears are turn out to be not at all the situation that they're having at hand. So if we're looking at, oops, sorry, I'm going a little bit of too fast. So I want to talk a little bit about what is fear? First of all, I think of fear as an acronym for false evidence appearing real. Things that we imagine are going to happen in the future based on our relationships in the past. So fear is nothing but projection. The future has not happened yet. That experience has not been created yet. And yet we apply all the lessons, so-called, from the past, all the things that have happened to us in the past, and we're just projecting them into the future. But of course, the future has not happened yet. So let's look at what is happening with fear. When we're scared of the dark, we're actually worried about what might be hiding in the dark. So it's not the darkness itself that is scary, but our projection of the scary things that will be in there. So it's our imagination of what might happen in a dark place. We're not afraid of heights, but actually we're afraid of falling, because the height is no problem. The problem is we cannot fly. So this is a very interesting shift that I do a lot with clients when I help them overcome phobias and fears. You're not afraid of people around you, or that your partner doesn't love you, but you're afraid that because they don't love you, they might let go of you. They're not gonna stay with you forever. So you're just afraid of not being loved back. You're also afraid that the reality that it's gone is not something that you want, if you're afraid of letting go of the past. So the reason why we block intimacy in our relationships is not because we're actually afraid of telling our partner how we feel, but because in the past they've reacted potentially badly to us sharing authentically, or a previous partner has reacted badly to us telling them some truth about ourselves. We're already projecting that as happening again. And this may not even be something that has happened in our adult life with a loving partner, but we learn this lesson as children. As children, we tell everything to our parents or to the people around us. If we have an imaginary friend, we tell people that we have an imaginary friend, and of course we believe it because maybe that person is there. But if other people laugh at us or bully us or tell us to stop thinking or talking like that, we learn that that is not safe. We learn that people may react badly to us being fully authentic and being fully ourselves, and that's the real fear. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what are some of the key ways of avoiding that or moving forward. I'm just quickly going to talk about, I'm just going to list here the things that people are most afraid of in relationship: intimacy, rejection, not being loved back, not being good enough, getting hurt if we share too much about ourselves, the fear of judgment, and ultimately the fear of being abandoned, because if we don't have someone to have our back and to protect us, actually it kicks in our fear of dying. So all of this is actually a survival mechanism, but intimacy in itself is actually a threat to our survival, because if someone sees their true self, they might decide to not like us, and they may not want to be with us forever. So I'm going straight into the five tools that I use very much in my coaching with clients on helping them overcoming these fears and increase intimacy as they either develop a new relationship or want to create a powerful connection or recreate a powerful connection with their partner. So first, I actually talked about this particular tool, iMessage Feedback, in my last training last week. It's called The Art of Being Heard and the Art of Sharing Your Feelings. So if you haven't watched it, go ahead and do it. It's still on Facebook and on my YouTube channel. And I'm going to very, very briefly talk about it here because I don't want to waste too much time on something that I've covered already, and you can see a full 45 minutes of it. So in iMessage Feedback, instead of blaming someone or accusing them that they're doing something like, oh, you never come home on time, or you never call me to tell me that you're going to be late, or you always prefer to hang out with your friends instead of sharing time with your family, if we're communicating with the word you up front, the person starts feeling attacked and they get defensive, they get reactive, and they're not really listening to the message that you're trying to communicate. So in iMessage Feedback, we shift from you, from accusation, blaming, or complaining, to describing how I'm feeling. So you can start a conversation by saying, when I have dinner with the kids alone, I am then feeling that I am a single mother. So this is the feeling that the behavior that, let's say, if a husband doesn't come home on time to have dinner with the kids, if you describe the situation, you describe the feeling that that behavior creates, and then you describe the effect of that behavior, the partner is really able to understand what is really going on. So this is a simple way of thinking about it. I feel really sad when you're not sharing dinner with me and the kids because I feel that somehow we don't get enough family time, and what I would really need would be to find some time where we can spend more family time together. For example, I'm just making this up as I speak. But I highly encourage you, if you want to test this strategy on yourself and your partner, just notice what is the difference when you communicate to your partner with these words, as opposed to saying, you never do this, you never do that. That really will make a big impact. I promise you. That is something that I've watched so many times with my clients. The second really, really important aspect of intimacy and connection is this idea of self-disclosure. Most of the time, we expect our partners to be willing and able to have to express themselves authentically, to talk to us from the heart about everything that they're feeling, seeing, what they're stressed about, what they're upset about. But very often we don't tell them the truth. Like I was mentioning the client before with the husband that she thinks is cheating. So I would like to offer you a really interesting research piece, if you like. So a few years ago, a researcher did this study called 36 Questions to Fall in Love. So she created this batch of questions that go from like basic to quite intimate, that people can use literally with strangers in a maybe a 2-hour session, where you go through these 36 questions in exactly the order that they're listed. And you will notice that by the end of that time, you will definitely have a deep connection with this partner. And many people have actually fallen in love. But this is also a wonder. It's been created so that the researchers were verifying if the vulnerability, an increased level of vulnerability, and an increased personalized response, or like digging into the truth of a person, made a big difference or not. You can also use this with a partner that you've been with for a long time, because just because you've been together for like maybe 10 years or more, it doesn't mean that you know everything about a person. Especially that when kids come into play, I see this all the time. The kids are essentially a catastrophe to your relationship from a lover's perspective. Of course, you can become great parents, you can co-parent and all that, but essentially, most parents that I work with tell me that since the kids came on board, their relationship disappeared. So this is also a great tool for you to recreate this connection. So let me give you some examples of what these questions are. So one of the first question in the list is, given the choice of anyone in the world, with whom would you want as a dinner guest? Now, this may seem like a silly questions, and for me, this is Esther Perel, the world's most famous relationship expert, my role model in a way. So she would be my ideal dinner guest because I would want to pick her brain about everything that made her the expert that she is. So whatever this question unveils for you, beyond the basic answer that maybe, I don't know, Angelina Jolie or something, it would tell you if your partner is truly honest, or if they have even thought about what is their deepest desire, what is something that really makes them passionate and makes them really interested in life. The fourth question in the list is, what would constitute a perfect day for you? Now, I love this question, and it's also the topic of a full 1 hour session that I do with my clients, where I ask them to write a story about what a perfect day in a perfect life would look like for them. And whether it is with a partner that you're just discovering, or with a partner that you know or you think you know for a long time, you may actually have no idea what they really want. 2 days ago, I had a session with another client, a new client, who told me the biggest issue she's having in her relationship is the fact that she and her husband do not have any shared interest. What she wants to do and what he wants to do is something completely different. Well, this kind of question is one that really helps you understand if you have compatibility with your partner, if the things that really, really make you happy are matching what makes them really, really happy. So if you could take away the kids, the worries, the business, the troubles, the pandemic, everything, are you and your partner aligned in what heaven would look like, or what perfection would look like? I would highly encourage you to have this conversation with your partner, and not just have a description of, a perfect day on holiday, having breakfast by the seaside, but every day of your life. What is a perfect regular day? What are some of the things that must be there that are really important? And this tells you so much about what a person is missing. And obviously, when lack of intimacy happen, when we become disconnected with a partner, is because we don't go deep into these questions anymore. We don't really ask them, what is missing for you? What could I do better? And this question is a perfect way of doing that. Another question that I really, really love, and it's something that we don't really ask our partners very often, and nobody really asks us unless it's in some sort of interview somewhere, is, what is it that you feel most grateful for in your life? Gratitude for me is one of the most important emotions. I was mentioning in my TED talk that even when my partner died, the thing that I felt the most for our relationship, for our whole life together, the whole 19 years we've been together, it was gratitude. The fact that he came into my life to teach me this incredible lesson to love unconditionally. But other people may be grateful for the fact that they've got children. Other people may be grateful for, the fact that they can support a family, which may have been their dream. It is a very insightful question that helps you understand what are the things that your partner values the most. What are the things that matter for them in their life? The next question is, if you knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly, would you change anything about the way you're living right now, and why? This is a beautiful quote from Buddha. The trouble is, you think you have time. Very often we get so caught up in our daily life, we get so caught up in our work problems and all that. And this is why I love this pandemic, because I think it's giving us a chance to understand that yes, we don't have all the time in the world, and actually we need to use this time properly. So this is a very, very insightful question, a question that can really help you understand what would your partner do if they didn't have to work for money, if they didn't feel trapped maybe in the relationship that you're in, or you would be able to understand if they do feel trapped. Because then they would tell you, maybe I want to go and take you and the kids away on a trip around the world, could be one of the answers. Or it could be, I just want to go and go crazy or buy a Ferrari, whatever it is that they want. It's still important to know what it is that they wish for most in their life. Then another question that is really, really powerful is also about death, but in a good way. If you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you most regret not having told someone? I guess these are really interesting questions in this time, because anything can happen these days. If you're separated from someone you love, what are some of the things that you wish you told them if you never get to see them again? Ultimately, this is true intimacy, being able to tell everyone how you feel about them without having the regret that maybe you forgot to tell someone you love them, or that you forgot to tell them to be grateful for all the things that they taught you. What were the lessons that you have learned in your relationship with that person? Okay, so that was skill number 2, which was about asking questions and self-disclosure. I also want to talk a little bit about this idea of responsiveness, because relationships are in themselves, by definition, they are between a minimum of 2 people. So what I say and what I do actually impacts the other person in absolutely 100% of the way. So what I tend to see as being one of the primary causes of disconnection and lack of intimacy is actually the fact that partners stop listening to each other, stop seeing each other, stop paying attention to each other. When everything in your life becomes focused on the kids, on the job, on the career, and you don't see your partner, you don't appreciate what they're doing for the family, you don't even register that they're in the room with you because you've deprioritized them so much in your life that they almost feel like they don't matter. It is the biggest barrier that you can possibly create in the face of your intimacy with your partner. So the most important, I don't like to give advice, but the thing that I always remind my clients and my partners, in fact, because it's a big pet peeve for me, is actually to never ignore or dismiss your partner. Now, I've been in a relationship for 19 years, so I know what it's like to think that you know what your partner is going to say, to feel fed up with the fact that they always make the same comments, or they always gossip about the same people, or that they may always blame you in exactly the same way. So what we normally do when we think we know, we stop listening. Immediately we either start thinking about something else, or we just dismiss that particular statement. It's like, oh, you always say that. Why do you always talk like that about other people? That hurts. Like, if someone comes to you and wants to share something meaningful, being ignored means that they are invisible. They don't realize that you care, because that's what ignoring means. You don't care enough for them to listen and to pay attention to them. So if you really want to reestablish intimacy and connection, always make time for what your partner is telling you, and also ask them to not ignore and dismiss you. Of course, now a lot of people would say, yeah, but she nags me all the time, or he's always on the phone to other people, or whatever. We have all these, oh yeah, but all of these actually tell you that you have already created a belief about what may happen if you stand your ground, if you communicate your boundaries. So for me, the most important reminder when it comes to not feeling invisible and being responsive is to give your partner time. If you can't give your partner the time right now because you're doing something else, just say to them, sorry, honey, right now it's not a good time. I do want to hear what you want to tell me. Let's have a chat about this later, but right now I cannot do this. But don't dismiss them. Don't ignore them. That is a very, very powerful shift that you can make. Now, especially in this time of social distancing and quarantine and isolationships, we still miss the one thing that we miss the most is touch. So for those of you who are single, you will know that, you know, you probably don't miss the restaurants, you don't miss the clubbing, you don't miss the sex, the casual sex that you had with other people, as much as you miss touching people, hugging people, feeling that personal connection that is through touching the skin. You know, the touching is a magical sense we have. um, every human touch that goes beyond the hand is actually an anchoring experience. So we create that connection at cellular level with another person, and it actually de-stresses us. It doesn't have to go into full intimacy or physical intimacy like sex and stuff, but just holding someone's hand when they're feeling stressed, holding someone in your arms for a few seconds gives them that reassurance that there is someone there, that they are safe. And creating this connection, if you never touch your partner, if you don't kiss, if you don't hold hands, if you don't cuddle, if you sleep in different beds and you never have physical touch, well, your connection is going to suffer. So think about what are some of the things that you can do, but not necessarily to jump on your partner straight away, because that's not going to happen. But I love this quote because it's something that I feel is a very powerful way of thinking about it. You know, chemistry with someone, whether you, a lot of people come to me and say, oh, we lost the spark, you know, we don't have sex anymore. It used to be great in the beginning, but now it's nothing, there's no intimacy. Ultimately, for me, chemistry and attraction starts in the mind, not on the body, because everything that happens in our body is actually a direct result of the thoughts that we have. If we stop thinking sexy thoughts, if we stop finding our partner attractive, if we stop admiring our partner, we're not going to be interested in them. We're not going to want to touch their body if they don't work on our head. And, you know, most of you will be women listening to this or watching this. And you know that for a woman, men always jump several steps. They go straight into, okay, let's go into the bedroom. But for us, foreplay is much more of a mental thing, you know. So create this connection. If you're single right now, it's an amazing opportunity to create this mental connection and this emotional intimacy with someone before you get to even touch their body. Because then if you have this and you touch each other, that the fireworks in this slide will absolutely be there. So work as much as you can to create this connection so that physical touch will actually be mind-blowing when you actually get to meet each other. And the same goes for people who have been in relationships that have been starved of touch. I know many people think that in most relationships it is the man who feels like he's not getting enough sex. But I can tell you that based on my experience and working with, I don't know, hundreds of couples in the last 6 years, it's usually women who are saying, I'm not getting enough. I'm not feeling loved enough. I'm not feeling like you care enough for me. So I would highly encourage you to initiate more, you know, because if you don't get as much, they probably don't know that you want it. So explore. Strategy number 5 that I want to talk about today is actually to show more appreciation. And this is again another huge blow to intimacy, because we don't really show appreciation. Very often after the high chemistry and the last phase of a relationship finishes, most couples get straight into what I call the taking each other for granted phase. The phase in which, you know, your husband is there, he told you he loved you, you told him you loved him, and that's it. You know, you don't need to say that to each other. In fact, next Friday, I'm going to do a relationship skills workshop on the 5 love languages. So if you want to learn more about the different ways in which you can show appreciation, that workshop will be absolutely, or webinar, or whatever, will be absolutely perfect for you, because there are 5 different ways we can show appreciation. And when we don't feel appreciated, that is the biggest issue.
So now I'd like you to maybe spend a couple of minutes and think of 3 things that you really truly appreciate about your partner. It could be the fact that they go shopping when you're too busy. It could be the fact that they take the kids to the playground when you're tired and you want to have an afternoon nap. Or it could be that, they work very hard to, I don't know, keep you in college and make sure that you get a degree, or that you are able to work from home, or whatever it is. There are things that a partner does, there are things that a partner says, there are things that the partner give you that you can appreciate. And also think, how are you showing your appreciation for your partner for all the wonderful things, all the wonderful gifts that they're giving you. And once you've done that, you can make notes to yourself if you want. Once you've done that, I'd also like you to think of 3 things that your partner appreciates about you. This is a wonderful exercise that I do with my couples clients, because in general, what we think our partner appreciates about us is actually nothing that they're really thinking about. So just sharing this with each other and being able to understand what they really like about you, even though they may not express it in a way that really makes sense to you because you have a different love language, then that is always a very, very insightful exercise for me in couples coaching and for them. So we're almost at the end of this webinar. I'm trying to keep things as short and sweet as possible. So I'd like to end this whole session by inviting you to give some thought to what are 3 things that you would like to improve in your relationship right now. Mostly, obviously, from the perspective of communication, intimacy, deeper understanding of each other, or anything else for that matter. There are lots and lots of different aspects of a relationship that sometimes people ignore, and we're not able to find our way back. And what I like to do most, my most favorite thing in my coaching, is to help people find that again. I don't believe necessarily in going back to what they had before, but my goal is really to help my clients move towards a new level of their connection and intimacy. So like I said, next week I'm going to do the webinar that I mentioned on the 5 love languages. I call it the Mastering the Art of Appreciation. And if you know somebody who isn't very good at appreciating you, whether they are, husbands or other people, I would very much invite you to share this with them. I talk to women because women are my passion. Helping women is my passion. But I try to make these webinars in a way to create them so that they're appeal to men as well, if they find it fits into something that they haven't learned in their life. So yeah, we've come to the end. We are now at the questions. So if any of you who are still online are interested in giving some questions or sharing anything. Oh, I've missed one of the comments here, so let me see. Okay. How to find time and energy with little kids around? Oh, that's a really good question. Time and energy for your partner? Okay, well, of course, these days that is a really big challenge, of course, right? We have the kids on our heads all the time. In the work that I do with clients, I try to find them, to help them find strategies that give them me time or us time. So depending on what you're currently putting your energy in, of course, if you have little kids, they're going to be super demanding of your time. You're going to barely have any time for yourself. But what are some of the rituals that you have with your partner? So one of the ways that I encourage my clients to create this connection, and I'm going to talk about relationship rituals, couples rituals in a different training, is to create something like make an agreement with your partner that, I don't know, every Monday night, maybe your helper stays a little bit longer and takes the kids to bed and you spend some time with them. Ultimately, we need to find time. You need to block time literally in your calendar, because If your husband is the last priority, or your relationship is the last priority, like I know it has to be for many women, because we have kids, we have businesses, we have family, parents, whatever other people, just maybe spend some time thinking how many regular how much time you actually spend having a conversation with your husband that is not about kids, that is not about the business, and is not about complaining about something. And if you decide that actually you don't have any conversation, I worked with some clients who told me that they are the perfect children raising machine. They only talk about the children, their entire lives revolved around children. It's entirely up to you to actually sit down with your husband and say, look, every week let's set aside 1 hour in which we spend some time together. Well, exactly. I can see the comment that you're making, that you talk about the kids and that takes all the time, and that's what everybody does. But is it really necessary? Of course, the kids are very demanding, but this is the problem with most couples I work with. They forget to be lovers. They forget to invest any time whatsoever, or they decide not to invest any time whatsoever in the actual relationship. So one of the shifts that you can make is really to deliberately decide to lock a time, which can be a regular time in your diary. Probably not in the morning, because I'm sure your kids are jumping up and down in your bed or something like that. They tend to do that, would drive me crazy. So I'm so grateful I don't have kids. But with all the clients that I've worked with, this is one of the most successful strategies, actually agreeing with each other that you spend an hour talking about other stuff that are not kids related. So you can think about it as a game that you play. You can think about it as date night. You can think about it as, just mommy and daddy time, whatever it is. But absolutely book it in your diary. Set a time aside, get notifications, align with your partner when that can happen. And ultimately, you are completely in charge of your life, or you can be if you choose to. And especially in Hong Kong, if you have helpers, I think that that can really be interesting. So yeah, if you want, I can actually share a couple of resources about how to kind of split all the different things in your life. And I think, Muskan, this is part of the planning conversation that we had when we met in person. Just, how do you decide what's urgent, what's important? And, it's probably good to engage your partner to say, hey, when's the last time that we talked about ourselves? I highly recommend the 36 questions, even though some of them are not going to be relevant because you know each other very well. It is so powerful to ask each other those kind of questions, because this is what a lot of my clients are telling me, is like, well, if I sit down with him, what am I going to ask? Because usually I ask him about how's your job, how's work going, what's happening, and then we end up talking about the kids. But if you set time in your life to say, okay, let's talk about other stuff that we haven't discussed about each other forever, that could make a big difference. So yes, I will also share a link after this, and I'll put it in my Facebook group as well. There is kind of like an app. So you can have a look on this app. It's a web-based app, and you can go through the questions, and you can play a game. You could even do it with the kids in some ways, except for those questions that are about dying, if your kids are not too young. For me, it's always been one of the most powerful tools I've used with clients. All right. Thank you, ladies. It's wonderful to have you here. And if you have time, I'll see you next Friday for the 5 languages of love. If not, have a wonderful Easter weekend and enjoy some you and husband time as well as family time. And all the best. Take care. See you all.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.